there's a lot of fun to be had with the alpha. I don't think the problem we're having is Windows, but I think there's something going on with Mike's specific setup that is just causing issues. So it's easy just to stream it from this side.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
I did try to put in a little Easter egg for Mikey today, just in case he tried it, because there's one thing that Michael always does in this current prototype. Mikey, what do you always do?
I clear up. I put the benches away into the coffins, sir.
So I was trying in a system whereby if you move the coffin lid, these huge colored particles come up and a paper squeaker noise happens. But it wasn't detecting the lid moving. And I
Oh,
was like,
that's a shame.
that's what I was doing 3 minutes before we went live. I was like, I
Will
don't
it
really
work?
have time to be doing this while we're. Yep. Back to Godot. Okay.
Well, that
It's
was a
great
nice.
play.
Speaking of which, I think it would be great to show it off again because we'll have newcomers that have dropped in since we showed it off right at the very
So why
beginning,
don't
so
we
we could talk about
start
Godot as well.
with something we didn't do this time around? Let's take a look at the weapon generator.
Yes. So there's going to be a companion course to the one that I will be releasing later this week in early access, where we're going to generate the random weapons in Blender, but we're also going to use the random weapons, take those components, and also assemble them over in Godot. So you can have um, a procedural weapon set up, either with the weapons ready to go and all made up, or you can learn how to put them together in engine as well.
Right. So let me just bring up chat again so I can see what I'm doing. No. Give me chat.
So what were the results when replicating Mike's setup?
Okay, so what we have, do you want to talk about that or should I talk about this?
I'll quickly answer that. We can't really replicate my setup anywhere else. I've tried it on another machine in the house and it behaves the same. I could try it on another machine. I don't think it's got anything to do with my setup specifically. But then again, I'm probably also not going to reinstall my entire operating system to see if it was a slight bug in some installation at some point. It's likely with iterations of Godot and a new driver coming out that it will just go away at some point.
Yeah. Okay, so these are not the assets we'll be using. But to test the concept, I got Mike to make a bunch of blades and a bunch of hilts, including crossguards, and a bunch of pommels, which, if you're not familiar, is the little weight at the bottom of the sword. And now when I press space, it's just going to generate a weapon. But you'll also notice it's picking materials and the text at the bottom is changing. A sword made of iron and gold, which does 26 damage and is worth 68 gold. What's interesting is if those two were the other way around, a sword made of gold and iron, these values would be different. So let's take a quick look at how that's working. So if I go to my random sword generator and close that because I don't care, and close this, there we go. Where'd you go? Come back. Okay, great. So the first thing is we have an array of resources, which is causing lots of errors because right here, implicit new class name. So you remember what I was saying that you couldn't have typed resource arrays? This is why. You just get a bunch of errors. But for now, I'm happy with it. All right. First, randomize. We're going to be using random stuff. We want to call randomize. Second, generate sword. Why am I calling generate sword here rather than just doing that? Because in Godot 4, you cannot access child nodes in a ready function. It doesn't have access to them. So you have to put another function in here. All right, so first we're going to make sure that we don't have any assets in there. We're going to get rid of all the meshes. Then we're going to get all of our meshes for blades and hilts and pommels. And we get all of our materials, our metals and our wraps. And then we're going to add them in. And then we're going to start a timer.
Can
Once the
you
timer is...
can you just go up for a second? Has Godot always had that not equal to symbol, or is that
No,
new?
that's new in 4.
Okay, I thought I would. Yeah, awesome.
Right? They've also done, if I do less than or equal to, it changes it to the actual symbol.
Ah, I'm
But if
learning
I
a lot
do
today.
is equal to, it actually it's really lovely. Okay,
Sorry, carry on.
so after that, we're going to start a timer. Why are we starting a timer? Because the mesh might not have finished loading yet, so trying to switch the materials is a problem. Then I'm going to get the material name. If both materials are the same, gold and gold, it's just going to call it a pure gold. Otherwise, it's going to say a sword made of 1 and 2, which does the amount of damage and is worth the amount of gold. Okay, so how do we get that detail? Well, let's look up our bone. Oops, come back. So we have bone weapon material. Now I look at it here. It has an actual material. It has a name. And these are the same materials we're using for our props, so it'll match. And it has damage and it has value. And I can change these for all of my weapon materials. So Lilactium, made up thing, is a nice dark purple. It's worth lots. It does the same amount of damage as bone. Great. Get into our random sword thing. And right here, the damage is the floor of the first material's damage plus the second material's damage times 1.5. What's the floor? Get me the lowest integer. Ignore the decimal. And the value is the same thing the other way around. So material 1 is more important for the value than material 2. Material 2 is more important for the... So that means when you're going through and you're trying to find these weapons, it actually makes a difference if you've got an iron and steel sword or a steel and iron sword, or a gold and gem sword might be worth money, but a gem and gold sword, now that's where the big money is. And as you're going to be collecting these throughout the game to sell to buy the equipment you actually need or to upgrade your base, that starts becoming important. We are still working on ways to make the icons work. We've got a proof of concept working a while back. Haven't done it in Godot 4 yet. With that done, should we take a look at the level?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Is calling Get Child Zero over and over a performance hit? It is indeed. However, it's a very small, simple scene, and it was more of a proof of concept. But when we get to actually teaching it, that's not how it's going to look, because you're quite right. That is a performance hit. It's negligible at this rate, but, not best practice. Okay, so here is our level. We have the level. We have the navigation region. We have the dungeon maker. Let's make a bigger dungeon. Let's make 8 by 6. Why not? We have the dungeon environment itself, which has a script. The script can pick between 7 now that we've just put the 7th one in, different environments, and we have a little label telling us what it is. And we have a timer, which is going to say, after the level's been made for 1 second, start making the navigation mesh. If I don't put that in, Godot 4 crashes because alpha. Let's see how that looks. Oh, yeah, hang on. So you see these errors here?
Yeah.
STFGI. So let's reload current project. Close that. Cause alpha. Okay. Once more.
With feeling.
Oh, right. It's open behind. There we go. Okay. So let's come back.
Awesome.
Great. So let's start with our default environment. Here's Bob. I like playing with particles. My frame rate is sinking because I'm streaming. Here's my collision particles. And we come into this room, nice and dark. I can bring up my torch spell. I've put this on a tween so that no matter what the level is, it will raise and lower smoothly. Here we are in a frozen level. Is Bob stuck? Yes. Come on.
I wonder if he's getting stuck on things now he's higher up.
I mean, it was a very sort of... No, because it's the mesh is higher up. He isn't.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
So yeah, here's our toxic level. Here's our desert level. Dessert. Here's our volcano level. And here's the one we made together that I called forest, which clearly isn't a forest, but is kind of weird. The idea here is to make as many different kinds of atmospheres as we can for the game. And then that would allow us to do things like pick which NPCs, pick what kind of loot, pick maybe what kinds of rooms we get, stuff like that. Yes, Bob is floating now. Let's go and see if we can rescue Bob. Actually, let's try a different dungeon. let's have a 50% chance of rooms. Sorry, 50%, not 500%. And it's gone to hide. There it is. Magic, 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 magic. Okay, so while the navigation bakes, it's going to slow down a little bit. And then Bob will start moving the moment he's able to find me.
There you go.
Until the navigation is baked, he can't find me. So I've just put... I found a bit of fire. So there's a little... Oh, I had to get rid of the reload if you fall in the fire because reloading was bugging out.
Yeah.
So here we are in the volcano. Let's go to... actually, I like the volcano. Let's go to the volcano. Especially when you open a chest. Woo! That wasn't...
I mean, should you load up the navigation mesh so they can visualize the actual loading of it?
I have to come out of here. Let's go to debug, visible navigation, run the level. The cause of the FPS hit is I've got a lot of fancy effects going. They run at 60 frames a second on my machine, but I'm also sharing my screen and my computer hates it. Okay, so these green lines, that is our navigation map. And you'll see this trap is well within the navigation mesh. So in theory, you could lead an NPC into it. Whereas the spinny blade, which is around somewhere, has an obstacle in it. So they will try and dodge that.
Here he comes.
Yeah, Spectre has it. Like, nothing about this is optimized. It does run smoothly. I've put on all the fancies I can. We've got a lot of particles. They're switched off when you're 50 meters away or more. I've got occlusion culling on, which helps massively. But when I start streaming, we get jerkiness. It's actually more jerky on the stream than it is here. Trying to stream at 1080p on a slightly old machine is going to do that.
Yeah, the quality is definitely higher than we've had trying to use Discord in the past. So I'm really happy that it's actually working.
Yep. So yeah, here we are with the default, and then we go to the one we made. So the idea is just to make this feel like very different environments. I would put that in with soundscapes and different music and different NPCs and so on, but that's what we're playing with. We're playing with ways to make this atmosphere feel very different. Hello. Now, Bob can't get to me. However, if there is another way around, he will attempt to find it. Is there another way around? Let's find out.
It is possible.
If you go looking for Bob today, you better go in disguise. If you go looking for Bob today, you're in for a big surprise. Sorry. I do like this throne room. No, there isn't another way in. Great. So let's go hide in the shop.
So we've got a question here about how do you put a wall in between two floors, basically to make an adjacent room, when using grid maps, since the floors and walls are different sizes? Well,
okay, that's a good question. When we are using grid maps, what we do is the floors are 20 meters squared. In fact, let's close out this share and do my face because easier to explain if you can see me.
Yeah.
Okay, so the floor is 20 meters squared. The size of the grid is 10. So at 0, put a wall, and at grid 2, put a wall. Don't put a wall on 1. So we're just using multipliers. We're actually not using a grid map right now. We are building. We have Room Builder as a script that is being placed in a grid, but we're not using a grid map. We can use a grid map, and especially now that navigation bakes at runtime, but we're not doing it.
Yes. When it comes to actually designing the assets, there is a certain approach you have to take if all of them are going to connect together, whether that's in a grid map, procedurally, or any other manual assembly. You're going to have to make sure that your assets themselves actually fit within the boundaries so they don't intersect with one another and pass through, but also that they link up. And that's something we'll be covering when we actually get to making modular dungeons, which is, of course, scheduled for a
Soon.
Soon, yes, soon.tm.
Actually, if you share my screen again, Mikey,
Yeah,
I
of
can
course.
show them how we're doing it. So, when the dungeon starts being built, let's get some nice space. Here we go. Get rid of that. Why don't you? Great. Okay. What did I just change? Help! Changing everything. Okay, great. So we have, that's the player. That's what I'm looking for. Again, not optimized, very rough and ready. We were using plain floors and rare floors. I'm currently not doing that. So this plain floor isn't being used at all. On ready, make floor, because we can't we can't access a child or add a child in ready. Okay. So I want you to go to room picker and get the floor. Let's take a look at room picker. So we've got room maker here. Oh no, room picker, sorry, is an autoloaded script. So if I go to room picker, it's just a list of all of the assets we're using. Right? So they're globally available. We can do it. And when we want to get a floor, we're just going to run that script once. We're not going to run it every single instance. Once that's done, then rotate the floor randomly. Rotation appears to only be in radians now, so I'm having to put them into degrees because I didn't learn radians at school. Then add the floor. Great. Then I want you to make the walls. So we've got a little bit of code to see where should the walls be. If there is a wall, put a wall. If not, then put a door there. Finally, when we've been through all of those, we run. Where is it? Here it is. Once we've placed all the rooms, then we're going to check for the walls. We're actually doing that in the wrong order, but we're checking for the walls and then we're adding the walls in. If there's already a wall listed in the position we're looking at, we don't want to add another one, right? So we're building up a list of walls we've placed, which is around here somewhere. Here we go. A list of walls we've placed, and that's just coordinates. That's just vector 2. Because we're only dealing with the X and Y. We're not dealing with, well, the X and the Z, really. We're not dealing with the X, Y, Z.
Yeah.
If the wall isn't already in the list, add it. And if it is, ignore it. If there's no room, we're going to put a corridor in, which has its own set of scripts and own set of floors. And then once everything's ready, we'll load the character in. Meanwhile, we're waiting for 1 second. And when that second is done, we are running this. And we're saying navigation region, I'd like you to bake me a new navigation mesh. And that's it.